All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here today for Precision Digital's introduction to our new enclosure assembly services. This is an exciting new product line. I am eager to talk about it. However, before I do, there's a couple of bookkeeping or housekeeping notes that I like to cover at the beginning of every one of these webinars. They're the most common questions we get asked, and so it's good just to get them out of the way up front. The most common question, of course, is, are we recording today's webinar, or can I get the slides from today's presentation? And the answer to both of those is yes. We are recording today's webinar. We are also going to send out PDFs of the slides you see. You should get those in a day or two. Hopefully by tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Thursday, you'll have an email out to you. That's going to go out to everybody who registered or attended today's presentation. And it will have a recording to either this webinar or the one we did last week. And it will have the slides for you. And then if I can ask you to do me a favor, share it with somebody who you think might be interested in hearing about it. Also, you will notice that you are in listen-only mode, especially as more of you are logging on right now. You'll see you don't have the ability to talk live on today's presentation. There's too many people on the line for that. There would just be too much background noise for it to work. However, you can ask me questions throughout the course of today's presentation. If you have questions that come up or you'd like me to talk about something specific, please use the chat feature in Zoom's toolbar, probably down the bottom of your screen, or you can type in a question and I will stop periodically to answer the questions and hopefully get to yours. If we don't, then we'll follow up after the presentation and make sure you get those answers. Finally, at the end of today's webinar, you may get a survey that pops up in your browser window that asks you some questions about what you thought of today's presentation. If you get that, please fill that out. It certainly helps me understand how we're doing. People share great ideas about what they'd like to see for future presentations, or ask questions that maybe they didn't think to during the presentation. So those are always valuable. Please go ahead and fill those out. All that having been said, I am now going to turn my video off so we can all focus on the slides, and we're going to talk about Precision Digital's enclosure assembly services. So Precision Digital is really happy that we can now offer this service of fully assembled and wired enclosure assemblies that are ready for you to mount and install. You put them on the wall, you laser field wires, and you're done. This is something that we've been getting asked about for a long time. And as of last October, we are now a UL listed panel shop. Now, of course, that doesn't mean we do everything a panel shop does, but we can build UL 508A enclosed industrial control panels, put a UL sticker on them, and ship them out to you. We'll talk about exactly what we do as far as what we're interested in building for you as we go through today's presentation. But everything you're going to see here today is buildable as a UL listed panel for Canada or for the US. By the way, I should introduce myself. My name is Joe Ryan. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Precision Digital. I've done a lot of things in the process industry. I've done product development and design. I've done marketing. I've done support for products. I've been with Precision Digital now for 21 years, so I certainly know our products and offerings quite well. So happy to answer any questions you may have about any of that. And let's take a look at what we're going to do today. So first, we're going to get a really high-level overview of what these enclosure assembly services are. Then we're going to talk about the different versions of those products we offer, which is our process value alarm enclosure assemblies, which are specific, specified, ready-to-build standard offerings that we offer. We'll see an application for that and talk about where those can best be applied and why you might use them. Then we're going to talk about our sub-panel assemblies. And lastly, talk about our custom enclosure assemblies. Those are each different versions of panel assemblies that we'll do, of enclosure assemblies rather. And you'll understand them all much better once we get to the end of today's presentation and which one you might be interested in yourselves. So first, let's talk about an overview of the enclosure assembly services. Very high level, what are all these different things that we offer? So as I said, we are now a UL 508A listed panel shop, and we use that UL listing to be able to build fully assembled enclosure assemblies that are UL enclosed industrial control panels. The idea is that unlike the past where you may have ordered a Precision Digital panel meter, enclosure, a light and horn, a sub panel, and then you put it all together and you do all of the wiring, we now ship these fully assembled, wired, and ready to install. You get a box that looks very much like this product here on the left. You put a couple of holes in it to bring your field wires in, and now you have a nice clean installation. And we just took 4 to 8 hours easily out of your day trying to install all of this, wire it all up, strip the wires, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, because it's a UL control panel, you've got drawings for this. You've got wiring guides. You know that all the labels are appropriately, all the wires are appropriately labeled. We've got the right fuses and grounding terminals, et cetera. We are able to custom tailor these to your needs. Now, maybe you are just buying one of our standard enclosures, in which case you still get to choose, do I want front panel push buttons? Do I want a light and horn? What colors of light do I want? Things like that. Or maybe you've just got a drawing you're sitting on that you need a panel shop to build for you. Hopefully it's got some precision digital equipment in it. Well, you can submit those to us too. And these are configurable with precision digital meters, but also third-party parts. We use, for example, lights and horns that we don't manufacture. We get someone's UL listed light and horn. We don't make terminal blocks. We use their terminal blocks. So this is a new thing for us where now we are bringing in third-party components that are UL listed or recognized to build up these enclosure assemblies. Oh, sorry about that. So let's talk about the Pronto series of standard builds and custom enclosure assemblies. That is what we're going to be covering here today. That's our initial offering for these enclosed industrial control panels. The idea here is that these are going to be shipped fully assembled, fast, ready to install. We have standard builds, which is our process value alarm assemblies. We're going to talk a lot about that because those are available quickly. They cover a lot of ground as far as what features you can get with them. And I think in many cases, that's going to be all you're really looking for your pump station or your lift station, maybe your chemical bulk storage display applications at the fill port, tank level display. Those are readily solved with our standard builds, which is our process value alarm assemblies. But then we're going to see that we also do custom enclosure assemblies as well. And we'll talk more about what those can look like and the different versions of it in a moment. There are three types of Pronto assembly services, and that's what I was just alluding to there. The first is those standard assemblies. These have part numbers you build out of an ordering guide. We can tell you exactly what they have. We've got the drawings already made. You know what it's going to look like when you order it, and that's all well defined in a data sheet and with marketing literature. Then you've got sub-panel assemblies. These are a middle ground between your custom assemblies and your standard assemblies. Here, what we do is we take the precision digital products you have bought, so for example, a consolidator and an enclosure, and we pre-wire all of that to a sub-panel. Now, if you get lights or horns or power supplies or signal splitters, et cetera, that are precision digital parts, we will also build those up in here for you as well. What we don't do is we don't interconnect things. We don't make it serve a certain function, like we don't wire a specific light to a specific relay. We don't put third-party parts in these sub-assemblies. But if you have a panel that is almost exclusively, if not exclusively, precision digital parts, and you want us to get you 90% the way to done, this is a great way to just take that build that you'd already planned on doing yourself and just have us do all that pre-wiring for you. So hopefully at best, you hang it, you bring in your conduits, you land your field wiring, and then maybe you make a couple of interconnects with some wires, right, to make sure that it's driving your light and horn, and that the push button you got works the way you want. So that doesn't ship out of here programmed or configured for any specific purpose, but we've done a lot of the pre-wiring for it. And then lastly, you've got your custom assemblies. Here's an example of that up top. You can see there's some third-party parts in here that perhaps are not things that Precision Digital sells. But the idea is that we'll design a panel for you. We will take your designs and build that panel for you. And now these are fully custom. So this can use any manufacturer's parts, different sized enclosures, different materials. This is a truly custom option, which really needs to be expanded on later. But basically, you have to bring us the idea of what you want us to build you. Before we get further in depth into each one of those options, I'm happy to pause for a minute to see if you've got any questions you want to submit to me. But also, I've got a question for you. So let me launch this poll here. And this is going to let me know how you learned about these products. Was the webinar invite you got for today the first time you ever heard about these? Or maybe you actually saw it through some other method. I'd love to know because, quite frankly, it's nice to know what works in our marketing. Thank you very much, everybody. I see some answers coming in here. I'll give you another minute to finish that off. Nice to see that some of you learned about these for the first time talking to Precision Digital people. So you are in contact with us. But it looks like two big winners here are talking to Precision Digital salespeople and in Precision Digital emails. Doesn't look like any of you just sort of came across it on our website or found us in a Google search. Good to know, though. Oh, no, never mind. Somebody just did the found a Google search. So one of you did. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing that information with me. Let's dive into the specifics of the process value alarm enclosure assemblies. So these are our standard build configuration that are really designed to suit a wide range of applications. Anywhere where you want to have display, potentially alarms like lights and horns on there, and then the push buttons to operate those. We will build these up in a number of different panel meters. You want rate totalizers, feet and inches displays, perhaps just our large display Trident on them. We have a wide range of panel meters, and we will build almost all of those up into process value alarm boxes for you. These are UL Type 4X. So UL has tested these for Type 4X compatibility. So they are UL Type 4X, but also NEMA 4X. Plastic or stainless steel enclosures. There you can get them with a light and horn. You can get them with sun hoods for the panel meters, optional push buttons. And we will also put a tag on the enclosure and a tag with every meter. You just have to tell us what you want those tags to be, and that is included in the price of every process value one. To give you a sense of what we're talking about here for price, you could, of course, go out and buy the panel meter and the light and horn tower and the enclosure and the buttons, do all of this wiring inside of yourself. Or you can get this PDEA, and then there's the rest of the part number. We'll get into it in a minute. And as you see it here, this enclosure would be about $2,300. That is a steal for the amount of time this is going to save you wiring it all up, making sure your enclosure fits everything, drilling in the tin rails, stripping all the wires. This ships to you ready to go, nicely wired, drawings completed. The lights and horns are all connected up. The push buttons are all connected up to the panel meter, so everything just works. And you just land your field wiring, and you're off and running. If we look at it a little more in depth, you're going to see the different parts that make this up. So you've got your CUL listed sun hood on top of that meter. I point that out because everybody always wants to know what that silver thing is over it. That's a sun hood. It extends out from the enclosure and blocks horizontal sun from hitting this. Also does help keep some environmental conditions at bay. It does help prevent snow buildup or prevent rain from hammering it. It's a NEMA 4X seal, so none of that should really matter, but it's good to know. If you're worried about ice buildup or something, it will help keep the display clear. Now we've got that enclosure top label and the panel meter label. Again, those come standard with every enclosure assembly or with every process value alarm enclosure assembly. You just got to tell us what you want. They all come with some form of panel meter. You can get 1 to 6 panel meters installed in an enclosure. Obviously, the enclosure gets bigger. If you're going to have 6 panel meters, you got to have a much larger box. We have 2 push buttons we can put on the front, either a test push button or a silence push button. The silence button silences the horn. The test push button makes your entire light and horn stack turn on, whatever that means, whether you got red, yellow, green lights, some combination thereof, horns are optional, but whatever you put in your stacks, the silence push button turns the test push button turns all those things on. Some people like it in the door. Some people like it to be installed inside the box. We can do either of those if that's what you want. On the inside, you see we install the backplane. We put a DIN rail with various terminal blocks, however many we need to fit the design that you're ordering. And because these are UL builds, we're required for the instruments inside to have a fuse, a grounding block, for easy power landing points, etc. And you'll see 2 different colored wires in here. Though everything is labeled, we like to separate out our AC high voltage from our low voltage, or at least from the signals. So all these blue wires, that's all your live AC that's coming in directly connected to your power terminal blocks. And then the white wires are some kind of controller signal. You might put high voltage on them, perhaps. I guess actually that's not true, because even in the case of the relays, we do use blue wires for some, but I guess that's the one point where it does cross, right? You see some white wires over here; those are relay wires. However, mostly when we connect AC voltage to it, we use these blue wires to it. And I'll point out, this is a nice looking package. This is something you can work inside of, and it's nice and clean. You're not going to have an inspector look at it and have a problem. If you're a reseller of ours, you can sell these, and it's going to look professional for you. It's going to probably look better than if somebody put it together in the field themselves. To give you a sense of the different kinds of builds you can put and what those look like when you're building a your part number, here are some examples of the 1 to 6 meter configurations. And you'll note you can also get them with multiple kinds of light and horn stacks. These are just a few of the options available. It is more customizable than that, but this gives you some sense of how we arrange those. At some point, due to the number of meters, you will get annunciators included free. Those help organize the relays coming in from these various panel meters so that it'll indicate for you which panel meter's alarm is going off, and it will sort of combine all the signals together to run your lights and horns more efficiently and give you more information about what's triggering them. Here's an example of a 6 meter configuration with a light and horn tower. So here they have the stainless steel enclosure. They've given us the information for the labels for both the panel meters and the enclosure itself. Because we have 6 panel meters, you'll see we've also installed those 2 annunciators at the bottom to bring all those signals together into one place to then combine them and run that light and horn stack. And they're using the 3-color light and horn stack. So they've got a green, a yellow, and a red light, as well as the horn on the top. Inside, we nicely, cleanly wire everything up. We use raceways to organize the wires. And in a nice enclosure like this, like a larger box with lots of wiring, we try to leave one side free for you to land your field wires. So all they've got to do is drill some holes in the bottom, bring their conduit in, and then you're going to wire up your connections through that raceway that we've left open on the right. Lastly, I'll point out you've got this test push button inside the panel. So they have a silence push button on the front to silence that horn. But then you've got this test push button, which is going to set off the lights and the horn, all the lights at once, just so that someone could open this up occasionally, press the test push button, and make sure that if there were a problem, all of those light and horn alarms are all going to work. A little more information on how that works on our light and horn towers. Again, the silence push button silences your horn. The test push button sets everything off only while you're holding it. It's a momentary push button. So you hold it in, everything sounds, everything lights, you take your thumb off it. And you can get any combination of these you want. If you want red and green, that's fine. Yellow and a horn, that's fine. Any combination of light tower you're looking for. One of my favorite elements of these is that they come with all the drawings. As these are standard offerings, we have already built up these drawings. And so these are available with shorter lead times than you might have if we had to do all these drawings from scratch. And you're going to get a mechanical drawing that's going to give you the overall dimensions. It's going to give you some information you can draw from like a 2D CAD package if you want to do an overall layout of your area. But then you're also going to get the electrical drawing, which tells you what's wired to what. That's nice for wiring up your system. It's also just nice to have on hand for future troubleshooting or any inspection issues you may have. As this is a UL listed product, you've got to have these, and we provide them to you, and I think they're quite good. Talking about those labels for a minute. So there are 2 labels that we offer whenever you buy one of these. There's the enclosure label, and that's what we call this top enclosure mounted label. It goes on the top of the door. It's typically much larger text. It's going to be bigger than the individual panel meter labels. And usually you use that to label the panel. You label its location, or you tell someone what the what the products are that you're measuring or which tanks that you're displaying the level on, etc. Then you've got your individual meter labels. That tells you what's on this specific meter. Perhaps you've got a transmitter ID number or a tank ID number on there. What's in this specific tank or what's going through that specific pipe. And it helps organize your information. You hate to see people with big fancy panels they had constructed and then they realize they don't know what's going on. And so they start putting packaging tape over Post-it notes trying to stick it on the front of their doors. Don't do that to yourselves. Figure out what you want these to be, tell us, and we'll make you labels. And they'll stay on there. They're incredibly rugged. You're not going to have a problem with it. And in general, it will just look better and be cleaner than if you start writing with a Sharpie on your panel. Here's a nice picture of that sun hood I mentioned earlier and give you a little bit better idea what that looks like. So it sticks out from the front of the door. It is still part of the UL Type 4X seal, so you're still weatherproof, waterproof, etc. It is stainless steel, so it's going to hold up. And in addition to blocking horizontal sun and glare, though these are sunlight readable displays, glare always hurts, right? It also does give you some degree of weather protection. And here's a nice close-up of those test and silence push buttons we talked about previously as well. If you're interested in learning more about these or you want to share the information somewhere with someone, we do have documentation available for you. You can go right on PDEA.com and you can get the data sheet for this product line, which includes how you spell out your part numbers, as well as our UL 508A certificate, which I know a lot of folks like to have on file. You can see examples of the electrical and mechanical drawings in the docs and resources page for this product line. And we've got our label order form, which you can download, and it'll give you details about what labels you get on which products and how you can specify those labels to make sure that your character counts and your number of lines all fit, and we don't have to track you. Let's take a look at the ordering information guide for these. It will really help you understand what options are available. And as you can see, there are a lot of them. We do not yet have an online configurator, though I suspect by the end of the year we will. So this is a PDEA, stands for Precision Digital Enclosure Assembly. And it is a process value alarm box, which has to do with how we wire it up. It's wired up to run the light and horns from the relays on the product that you have. And then you select B, which is your meter types. You can see there's a whole lot of different meter types you can get. So whether you're doing just basic process indication, maybe you want to show gallons, great, you've got your PD6000, or you have a feet and inches version of the 6000, which is great for tank level. We can put strain gauge units, rate totalizers in there, temperature indicators. One of my favorites to recommend, other than the 6000, is our 765 Trident X2. Gives you a nice big 1.2-inch display on the front of this panel, so someone doesn't have to walk right up to it to see what's going on. Then you select how many of those meters you want. You can select 1 to 6, all of the same meter type. Then lastly, in this block over here, you select your power option. Now, this is power for the whole panel, not just for the panel meter. So if this is going to be power that you're going to land at that internal terminal block to work everything here. So if you get the 120 volt version, you're going to get a 120 volt powered panel meter. If you get the 24 volt version, you're going to get a 24 volt powered panel. But be aware that we wire all of this up to the lights and horns, to, if necessary, the push buttons, etc. So that's what you're doing here, right? You're really picking what's the power that's going to drive all the elements we put in the panel. And after you're going to select your enclosure material, we offer plastic and stainless steel, both NEMA 4X. Then this block of G's lets you pick your light and horn stack. So you're going to pick how many individual towers you want. Typically, people either get none or one, but I have seen cases where, for example, you're monitoring 2 tanks at one station, and the left tank, they want a horn and light tower for the left tank, and they want a horn and light tower for the right tank on the right. So you can get 2 light and horn stacks if that more fits your application. Each one of those stacks is defined identically. So you're going to say whether you want the light to have no, well, first off, if there's no lights, or if you do have a light, do you want it to be steady or do you want it to be flashing? We always recommend the flashing if you're going to be putting these outdoors. though they should be identifiable as being on when you look at them outdoors and there's a lot of sun, sometimes it's hard to tell a steady on light from an off light. But if you have it flashing, then you get a lot of contrast between those two states, and it's much more clear that there's an alarm. So in general, I'd say always get the flashing unless you have to, by specification, get a steady light. Then you build those stacks. Do you want a green light? Do you want a yellow light? Do you want a red light? Do you want a light and horn? I'm sorry, do you want a horn? And if you do want a horn, do you want the silence push button or not? Lastly, you're going to pick your sun hood followed by your test push button. And that's just whether or not you want a sun hood. And if you want a test push button, whether it's going in the door or it's going inside the panel on the dim mount. Which really just has to do with who you want to have the ability to set off that light. Once you build all that up, some of these products are already defined on our website. We're happy to get you a quote for these. And because these are all have drawings that are pre-made for them, and we know exactly what we're doing, these are typically available, I'd say, within about 15 business days. Of course, rushes are available. If you talk to us, I'm sure we can get it out faster, but we'd like 15 business days to ship these. As we saw in the part number scheme, we can put our ProView series in here. That is, I'll call it the default where I like to start. It gets you a nice two-line display for units and tags. Gets you a wide range of different kinds of inputs and capabilities, including rate totalizer, strain gauge meter, temperature inputs, Modbus capability, etc. And you can have 4 relays, which is nice. Then we've got our Trident X2 series, which is great if you want that large display on here. You can see the comparison between these two. The Trident X2's large display is just really, really important. Somebody wants to just glance over at a panel and see what's going on. The Loop Leader series is also available, our loop powered line. Lots of information you can get on that display, including bar graphs. Or if all you have is point level or flow switches, things like that, you can get just annunciators, which just bring in those single point discrete contacts. One thing I would like to point out is that with these process value alarms, you get the maximum number of outputs on this product. You don't get every single possible PD6000, for example, you could buy. You get the PD6000 that comes with 4 relays and a 4 to 20 milliamp output. If you get the Trident X2, you get 2 relays and a 4 to 20 milliamp output. If you get the Loop Leaders, you get the 2 relays and you get the 4 to 20 milliamp output. You can only get this with the fully populated number of relays and output. But honestly, at this point, when you're already buying a $2,000 box, we really just think you'd rather have the relays than perhaps save yourself $25. So let's take a look at a very common application for the process value alarms. This is probably the most sold application for these products thus far, and that is chemical bulk storage. Done at all kinds of plants. All sorts of facilities do this. Extremely common at water and wastewater plants, but plenty of private companies who are doing process work have chemical bulk storage going on there as well. The likely reason that it is so popular is that many local governments and municipalities require a tank level display at their fill port. And many of these states will specify that it has to be a digital display. You can't just have a sight gauge on the tank a quarter mile from where your truck pulls up or inside of the building. You've got to have it at the fill port for the truck drivers. There's 44,000 chemicals controlled by the EPA. So there is a lot of fill ports with a lot of display needs out there. And just having that display on the transmitter doesn't help. Let's take a look at this little flow diagram or little application of a fill port display on the right and talk about why you need this. Well, what you see here is we've got a building, or this plant has a building in which they have 4 chemical bulk storage tanks. Now, each one of these tanks is going to have a transmitter mounted on the top. They may even have sight gauges or something next to the tanks. But none of those displays are going to help the truck driver who pulls up outside the building. And when they pull up outside the building, they're here to connect to the fill port, which is where they're going to pump in the chemical they're going to store in those tanks, or perhaps empty them. That truck driver has no clue what's happening inside this building unless you give him a digital display at your fill port. If you do not have that, you run the risk that he's going to connect to the wrong port, pump the wrong chemical. He's going to overflow a tank. He's going to pull it dry. Uh, you're really trusting the system here to work if he doesn't have any idea what's going on there. And that's how you get overflow, spills, blown pumps, etc. So you want to give that truck driver at the fill port a display so they know what they're doing. So they don't pull up thinking they're supposed to deliver 70,000 gallons when they're only supposed to deliver 7, or pull up and accidentally plug into a tank that's already almost full and end up blowing the top and overflow. Give them the information they need to do their job. Being a little cynical for a moment, I also like it because I have seen plenty of these applications where once they have plugged in and started to pump things, the truck driver goes back into his cab and he jumps on his headset and starts talking on his cell phone, because this can take some time. In those cases, it is great to have a nice big display over here with a light and horn tower on top of it. So if something goes wrong, you get their attention again. A nice opportunity for that Trinix 2, or heck, even one of our large display meters, so that they can see it from the front of the truck when they're doing all of their pumping from the back. There are real practical reasons that you want to have these fill port displays, and the fact that our process value alarms simply mount on the wall, you land your field wiring, and you're done, makes it an easy way to get those upgrades done. All right, I've talked at length about the process value alarms. That is the bulk of the presentation, but there are other options available to you in our enclosure assembly options. So let's talk about those for a moment, so you know what else is available to you. And we're going to start with our PDEA, our Precision Digital Panel Enclosure Assemblies, which are sub-panel assemblies. These are not fully assembled systems like what we just saw, and you don't order them that way either. So these are fully assembled enclosure systems, pre-wired, with meters and accessories that are available from Precision Digital. So this is only for things that we currently sell. We install them, whatever that looks like. We put the lights and horns on the top. We put the serial adapters inside. We put the panel meters in the door of the enclosure. Whatever that means, we install it however that product is meant to be installed. And that's what we do. That's all we do. We then pre-wire all of it. So for example, if you buy a consolidator and an enclosure and a panel subassembly, we will wire your consolidator up to tin rail terminals. We'll put in the fuses, the grounding block, etc., whatever you need to make this a UL panel. We'll give you wiring guides and drawings to define it. But that's as far as we go. We haven't put any third-party equipment in here. We haven't wired those relays to anything. You know, if you had a light and horn here, we're going to wire that light and horn down to your terminal blocks. And that's it. We're not going to wire it up to relay 1. You know, we don't know what you want it doing, so we're not going to do that for you. But if you want to do some of the work yourself, this is a great way to get you 90% of the time. And this will work with any combination of Precision Digital products. So if you want to mix and match panel meters, you want to add buttons, lights and horns, you can do all of that. And you simply buy each part separately and then get the Precision Digital panel assembly part number with it, and we'll install it all and pre-wire it. Here's another example of what these assemblies look like. Here, someone bought the painted steel enclosure, a ProView panel meter. They got, in this case, they got the four relay expansion module, so that they got a total of 8 relays with their panel meter. They also got the RS-485 serial adapter so that they could connect up for Modbus. So they're buying 4 things: the panel meter, the box, the 2 sub-assemblies, and then the last thing on their purchase order is the panel assembly. And so we will put in the sub panel, make the drawings, do all the connections and wiring for you to make it a UL panel, including your power block here. And that's as far as we bring it. So we're not connecting these relays to anything. We're not connecting the 485 to anything. You can see this whole bottom of the terminal blocks are available for the customer to land his wires, cross wire them, whatever he wants to do. But this is mostly done now for that customer. If they really want to, you know, they can always snap another thing on the sub panel or whatnot, but most likely this customer's all set at this point other than just landing their wires. So a great way to save you time if you're building some fairly simple panels that only involve Precision Digital equipment. Then you take that next step to our custom enclosure assemblies. This is where now we are making you something just for you to your specifications with unique new drawings. If you have an enclosure assembly that you want done and you want to talk to us about making that happen, we'll walk you through it and we'll try to figure out what you need, give you some preliminary quotes. If you've got drawings and you just need somebody to build this thing for you, send it over to us. We are not just a panel shop here, so there are certainly jobs that we will not do. If you have something that requires really big VFDs or big pumps or something that go inside the panel, we may not do that. If you want us to assemble you a chemical dosing skid that goes inside of a shipping container, well, we're not going to do that. You want us to build you a 40-foot long filter press panel, we're not going to do that either. But we are happy to look at it and tell you, okay, if this fits our expertise, which is building small, medium-sized panels or cabinets that contain control equipment or perhaps limited three-phase equipment, then sure, great, we can do that for you. And we'll get you some preliminary pricing. We'll start talking about what we can do, what that lead time might look like, and see if we can help you out. Over on your left here, as you see an example where we did that for someone, this was a very simple custom enclosure for us because the box, the labels, the panel meters, even this power supply was all standard Precision Digital equipment, including all these serial adapters. They just wanted us to install a backnet converter a modbus to backnet converter for this so that it could go into a backnet system. And so great, we pre-wired everything up to their sub panel. So all their relays, 485, 420 outs, all the sensor inputs are all wired up down there, ready to land field wiring to. And we built it up with their specific serial adapters and converters in there so that when they got this box, all they had to do was look at the drawings, land the wires where they wanted, and they were done. There certainly are more complicated boxes than these that we've done, but this is a nice simple one to show you that we are installing a third-party piece of equipment in the box. Here's that exact same concept of an enclosure, but it was done with just 3 panel meters instead of 6. Now, for example, just last week, we quoted out one that had some VFDs in the box. It went in a big stainless steel cabinet that was like 3 feet wide. So we could do much more complicated work than just what you see here. But I just wanted to show some pictures of something with a third-party piece of equipment, because that's really where you get into that line that crosses into a custom development. The process value alarms can do a lot. If you just need the sub-assembly, well, that'll get you even more equipment in there. The minute you're involving third-party items or extra large enclosures, like we may not offer standard, now you're talking a custom enclosure assembly, and you got to talk to us about some preliminary pricing and lead time. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I see there are already a couple. We'll cover that. I do have another poll for you that I'm going to throw out there. The idea here is that I would like to know if you want us to talk to you more at length about anything that we've covered here today. So it's okay to answer no to these questions, but if you'd like us to reach out and talk to you, please go ahead and just let me know in the poll. I can't do that because these are anonymous polls unless you put down your name in this poll. So if you want us to do that, and you want me to actually follow up, you got to put your name there. Every time I do this, there's always some people who say, yes, please contact me. Here's my question. And then they don't give me their name, and I'm not able to talk to them because we do keep all of these polls and surveys in. I'll give one more minute for people to fill that out. I am already seeing some people say yes, but then I do not see names. So please make sure you put your names down there so that I know how to follow up with you. All right, and I'm going to leave that up there for a minute while I answer a couple of questions here. Let's see. First of all, I got Tom who is asking, do we have the ability, I think I get what you're getting at here, which is, do we have the ability to bring 240 volts into the panels like we do with the panel meters? So the answer to that is we don't in the process value alarms, we do in everything else. The meters are typically capable of bringing in higher voltages than 120, but our standard offerings for lights and horns do not. And so we could do that. We could get lights and horns that are able to handle that level of voltage. If you need to have that, I would say that either we'll build your custom enclosure assembly, or maybe we could do a sub panel with a power supply inside of there, kind of depending on what your input power is. But typically, we offer 24 volt, and we offer 120 volt powered panels in the process value alarm standard offerings. Then I got a question about NEMA 4X. Is there anything I can install here that's going to cost me my NEMA 4X seals? So what he's talking about there, I'm sorry, this is coming from Brian. What Brian is asking about is NEMA 4X seals on the enclosure, which tells you that essentially you are waterproof, dustproof, etc. And when you are building these up, is there anything that's going to sacrifice the panel meter seal or the enclosure seal? Because that is sometimes a concern. Oftentimes people will build up panels where you're using a NEMA 4X panel meter, for example, but once you start adding in light and horn stacks or sunshades on your instruments, you are maybe buying third-party parts that don't include that same rating, and therefore you lose that. We like to only use, well, we can only use if it's going to be UL listed, UL listed or UL recognized parts. And we will typically only use things that are type 4X, which is the same thing as NEMA 4X, but UL has tested it. Therefore, it's UL type 4X. So, for example, everything you see in this picture, the light and horn stack, the sunshades, the meters, the enunciators, the push buttons, those are all UL type 4X products, which means no, adding any of those is going to maintain that type 4X seal. If you want a custom enclosure assembly, we have had customers ask us for things that are not UL type 4X, and we will do that so long as it's understood that this will no longer be a UL panel and or you are giving up that type 4X seal. But if we're going to do that, it has to be a custom enclosure assembly. Typically, everything that we offer is going to be a UL listed or UL recognized part, and it's all going to have that type 4X rating on it. With that, folks, there are one or two other questions. I don't see others here that are going to be easy to answer on the video right now. Okay, actually, Ryan is asking a good one here. Can you put an IS barrier in an enclosure? And are UL certifications? Do we have UL certification to build panels for hazardous areas? And so the answer to that is, well, we can certainly put anything you want in the panel. We are not approved to build hazardous area panels for UL. So we can't give you a IS rating or a purge panel rating or anything like that, or build up explosion-proof instruments inside of a housing and have that be a UL assembly. That may follow. You may hear about that in 3 months, 4 months, something like that. We are talking about doing that right now. Preliminary things have already been put in place to start that process. But as of today, we are only making UL listed panels for ordinary locations or safe areas. But I'm happy to hear from you. Ryan or anyone else here, if you've got ideas about the panels that would be helpful for that, or technologies you'd like to see us be able to use, like, for example, barriers and purge systems, reach out, let me know, fill out the survey. I'd love to make sure that when that offering launches, we cover all the bases and can do what people want us to do in that area. So I'd certainly be interested in learning more. Thank you very much for giving me your time today. We have gone over the half an hour. I appreciate everybody sticking with me. If you've got any questions and additions to what we covered here today, please feel free to reach out to me. Don't be afraid to make contact and ask me questions I may have already covered here for clarity, or ask me something entirely different. If tomorrow something comes up, you know how to get a hold of us. So I look forward to hearing from some of you. Remember, if you get a survey when we close out today's presentation, please fill it out. I'd personally appreciate that because it is a big help. And hopefully I'll talk to some of you soon with some panel assembly applications. Thank you very much.